Okay, so now that we have everything in place to begin shooting at stuff, let's make a blueprint from our player class. So we'll type in here player character, and then we'll call it BP player character. We'll save that out, and that's basically all we're gonna do. We're only gonna do that, or we just did that so that we can select what we would like to spawn when we hit an enemy very easily. So what we're going to do is go back into our code, and we're going to begin by giving ourselves a camera component. We're going to need this for the zoom, so we'll go into protected and we will give ourselves a right above the functions. We'll give ourselves a U property, oops, and we'll call it edit. We won't call it this, but we'll say we only want to edit the defaults, and we'll set the category to projectile. We'll make that a subclass of, oops, actually, you know what? I forgot to create the class for that. So we'll go to add code to project, we'll create an actor for it, and we'll call it explosion particles, or explosion effect. You know what? Let's just call it explosion. There we go. We'll create that class. No, I don't want to edit that because we're just going to go in here. We'll close this. Get out of the debug mode. And we'll hit reload, and then here our particle class, or our explosion class, will show up. We'll open it up. We don't need the enemy class anymore, so I'm going to remove that. And that's basically all we need. So we'll go into our player character class again, and now we'll do a U property, edit defaults anywhere, or oops, everywhere, or only. I'm getting my edit anywhere and edit defaults only, or visible anywhere. Category equals default classes, let's call that. And we'll do T subclass of a explosion, and we'll call it, let's do a forward declaration there. We'll call it explosion class. We'll just change this formatting. We're also going to want to give ourselves a camera component. And for the camera component, we want to set to visible anywhere. We want to blueprints read only. You don't want to write to it. You want to keep it a certain way. And category equals camera. And then we'll call that or we'll make that a T sub object pointer to a U camera component. And we'll call it camera component. And we'll just get rid of these terrible. And this is supposed to be blueprint, oops, read only. And at this point, we can now go into our player character CPP, and above the original walk speed set, we can just set the camera, or we'll make the camera component using the pcip.create default create default subobject template version u camera component, and we'll say this is who's calling this thing, and name it camera component. Then we'll do some property adjustments. So we'll set the parent to our capsule component, and we will set the relative location to an f vector at 0x, 0y relative again to our parent, and then on z we want to do 50 plus base eye height. And then what we're going to want to do is we'll set up our zoom stuff right now. What we're going to need is we're going to need a zoom level, so we'll make that an integer, int zoom level, and then we'll make a const int how many zooms do we want. So let's say const zoom level, or oops, const max zoom level, let's say 3. So 3 including no zoom, so we have no zoom, we have a little bit of zoom, and we have our furthest zoom level. Using that, we need to keep our original camera field of view so that we can reset it once we've rolled over our const max zoom level. And you might wonder why I'm not keeping these values together. It's because I'm keeping them together in terms of their type, which is memory alignment. Because if you put all these things like a bool next to an int, next to a float, next to a object of some sort, you're going to get a little bit of you're going to increase the size of your class, the amount of space that it takes up. So by doing this, I'm aligning all the memory properly, and it all just kind of sits in place properly and really takes down on the size of our classes. In memory, of course. So now, I guess we can, let's do our fire function first. So we'll make an onFire, void onFire, and what we'll do with that is we will come in here, we'll make the implementation for it, and in onFire we're going to use the trace from self function right here that we made in the sign tutorial, and we're going to cast a trace out, and on its return we're going to see what we hit, and if we hit something we want to explode, we'll explode it and we'll spawn an explosion in its place. Now we don't want to be able to fire if we're sprinting, because imagine sprinting while you're firing, you wouldn't get much accuracy. So if we'll do if not be sprinting, since we already have that in place, we want to make a hit result, f hit result, hit result, and we'll do e force init, and then we'll do bool b trace success equals trace from self, and we'll pass in hit result. We'll send it out by, let's say, let's do 12,000 units, and we'll do e collision channel world dynamic. Then we'll if b trace success, so if we ended up hitting something, we'll enter this piece of code, or this block of code, and then we can get ready to take the world, take over the world. Oops. Const world equals get world, getting ahead of myself here. And then we'll see if that worked, as usual. and then we'll take the hit actor. Const hit actor equals hit result dot get actor if hit actor, oops. So if there's actually an actor hit, we want to check its name. So let's do bool b is enemy, and in this way we can check the name of the item, because the engine's going to concatenate a number to the end of our blueprint name, so we don't want to check and have like a infinitely large if statement or switch statement that checks for each and every possible number that there is. It would be terrible to have a for loop that just checks every single enemy in the scene and checks to see if it contains enemies. So what we're going to do is, does this hit actor get name, does the name contain enemy? Like that. So this is going to return a bool, and then we can, based on that bool, if b is enemy, then we can do what we want when we've collided with something. So we'll take an f vector, const explosion location, and we'll set that to hit actor get actor location. We want the rotation of it, and it's just hit actor dot get actor rotation. Make some spawn parameters, spawn parms, and then we'll do spawn parms, oops, palms, spawn parms dot owner equals this, spawn parms. We actually don't need an instigator, so we'll just we'll set a explosion pointer const explosion equals world spawn actor of type return me a explosion, and we'll do explosion class explosion location explosion rotation and spawn parms. So we'll spawn an explosion, and we will destroy the actor in which we hit destroy. So that will remove it from the scene, and we now have a function that allows us to fire something and destroy it when we collide with it, or when our array collides with it. So let's see. Oh no, this is going to tell me bad news, because I need to say that an explosion exists. So let's include a explosion .h and compile. Did I type a explosion up here? I did. This is gonna break. At least it should break. Yeah. Sorry about that. That's my fault. And let's try this again. So we'll pull this up, and if all goes as planned, unless I've forgotten something, which is completely possible, we should be able to attack our things, and no, we cannot. So I must have forgotten something. Oh, yeah, see, this is you get to see just how silly some of our mistakes can be. We didn't map the fire function, or the fire input. So what we want to do is we want to go to our input mappings, we want to do an action mapping for fire. So let's just type it fire. And then we want to make that left mouse button. So when that's clicked, we'll fire that event off, and we go into player character, and we'll map that action. So we'll do input component dot bind action, and we'll do fire e input event, i.e. pressed, this, and a player character on fire. There we go. So now that we have that, we should just be able to compile that in, and it should fire that function now when we press the left mouse button. Okay, so that worked. Now let's see if this worked. This actually might crash because I didn't do one thing. Let's do this. We need to go into our blueprint for our player character, and in the defaults, we need to go down to, where is it? Miscellaneous, activation, base. Where are we? Where did I put it? There it is, default classes. And you want to, oh, we didn't make, BP, what have I done? 1 second. Blueprints. Blueprint effect explosion is what I'm looking for. Let's try putting that in project assets. I think that might be a problem that it's not in the same folder. Let's copy him in here. Oops. And then we'll save him and go down to defaults. No. Oh, I know exactly why. I'm sorry, guys. Just another derp. We want to change the default class to this. We want to change the parent class. I want to reparent the blueprint, and we want to make it explosion. That's why, because it's looking for something that inherits from explosion, and it's not finding any blueprint that does that. So now if we go to project assets, we'll actually delete this blueprint character here. We'll go into project assets, and now we should be able to do that. There we go. Perfect. We'll compile that, we'll save it in, and it should work now. Let's see what happens. Well, we are certainly destroying them, but our explosion isn't happening. Okay, so I made a pretty big boo-boo in the last tutorial. I would left the default pawn class as just the static class of player character when we had started using the blueprint. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do exactly what we've done for the enemy blueprint, but we're going to do that for our player blueprint. So just get an object finder for a U blueprint, and we'll call it player blueprint, and we'll throw in where it is. So blueprint, we want a blueprint type, and we want to find it in /game/project assets, and it's called bp underscore player character dot bp underscore player character. And then just check to see if it worked. If player blueprint dot object, then set the default pawn class to cast it as a U class. This is a safe way of doing it in the engine. Make sure that it can actually be cast properly. And then we'll just pass in player blueprint dot object generated class. And now when we go into compile this, alright, so now we're back in our editor and we play, and these spawn and they explode. Beautiful. So we've now created technically a first-person shooter, albeit a very very low quality, low budget first-person shooter. So now we're going to I'm going to cut this tutorial here. I've actually appended this to the end of the original tutorial. And then the next one's going to be filling in the zoom function, and we're done for this set of tutorials. So I will see you in the next tutorial.